Get ready to dive into the comic book realm where heroes rise and villains take the helm. We're here to dissect the stories and the art. Our source material, we tear the panels apart.
Issues 9 through 12 of this maxi series, Lois Lane. That's right. We're getting ready to finish out our discussion on the reporter exploits of Lois Lane and her investigative partner, Renee Montoya, The Question. Now, when we last left them, Mark, their hotel room was getting blowed up.
Yep. And yet again, we have two normal human beings able to survive an explosion.
So we have this assassin that's running around, which, by the way, goes by the name of... Okay, now, if you couldn't pick... I knew this character's name before it even got revealed. It was a skull with lipstick right in the center of the forehead. And that fucking thing's going to be called Kiss of Death. I know it. And sure enough...
I thought it was a chick version of Black Mask.
The skull kind of threw me there for a few. Mm-hmm. But then when I saw the lipstick, I was, okay, Kiss of Death, whatever.
Comic books are mad goofy, yo.
Oh, yes. Well, just to let you know, this character does not have any continuity prior to this series at all.
Oh, good.
Made up completely for this series. So here we go. As the enigmatic assassin, Kiss of Death, continues her deadly pursuit, Lois turns to the Dark Knight himself, Batman, for aid. He unveils an occult angle to the assassin's modus operandi, sending Lois and Renee down a metaphysical rabbit hole. Lois works official channels to locate Alejandra, Alejandra was her housekeeper, who it turns out the Kiss of Death did something happen to where she replaced Alejandra. Alejandra ends up in a detention center because she's undocumented or something along those lines, or possibly undocumented. Anyway, The hotel worker whose identity Kiss of Death stole to get close, but her efforts leave Alejandra's family in jeopardy of deportation, weighing heavy on Lois's conscience. A new wild card enters the fray, Jessica Midnight. A young woman with latent mystical abilities and ties to alternate realities. Oh, yes. This is the DC universe, after all. We did have a crisis at one point.
We've had several crises.
Crises. Ties to alternate realities bleeding into this one. Under Renee's guidance, Jessica's powers may unlock the key to defeating Kiss of Death. In a daring trap, Lois lures the assassin out, only for Jessica's reality swapping spell. I say reality swapping, it's actually location swapping spell to go awry. Kiss of Death ends up switching places, with Sister Clarice at a different location. And as she arrives, she was just in the middle of pulling the trigger to try and kill Lois. Unfortunately, she shoots Renee point blank in the abdomen. Jessica, though, however, manages to keep her alive by all attempting to sacrifice some of her life essence.
Easy for you to say.
Evanescence. While she's getting ready to do this, however, something flips in Kiss of Death's head during this period of time where she also starts to experience this thing where realities are bleeding into her head. And she realizes that she had a relationship with Renee. And before Jessica can do whatever ritual she's doing with this knife and she's about to cut herself, Kiss of Death grabs the knife and, for the love of Renee, ends up cutting herself in order to save her. There you go. Shockingly, the assassin's true identity is revealed. Alicia Sanchez, Renee's star-crossed lover from another universe. Yeah, this fits right in there with Lois Lane Reporter.
This is about where the book loses me.
Cursed by her cult for their forbidden romance. Yes, I think the name of the place was the League of Sin or something like that she worked for. Anyway, united by this connection across realities, now Alicia and Renee join forces to assist Lois. Alicia and Renee embark on a globe-spanning mission to expose the truth of, I think they go and they're trying to get more evidence about the murder of Moronova. But they also come back from Chechnya with a heist with evidence so that Lois can pin this thing.
All I can think about was be gay, do crime during this whole segment.
Okay, what is that?
We're just gay and in love and blowing people up because that's what we do.
Okay, all right. So Lois gets some evidence. Now she has evidence that she can use to write a story that actually damns the Russian government for the murder of Moronova. All right, then it's time to go on tour because Sister Clarice and Lois have one more thing to do, one more explosive story to let loose on the earth, and that is that there are alternate realities out there, and there may be people that are suffering from these things bleeding into their head. In the aftermath, Sister Clarice establishes something called the Unity House to help those grappling with these memories from other realities. Lois promotes the center and emerging truths about the multiverse on live television, something called the perspective instead of the view. So they go on to the view of DC Universe's The View to tell everybody this, which I don't know if that's the place I would start, but whatever. And though her bombshell report brings Larry Shaw to justice, that happens. That's good. That resolves itself. Larry Shaw, the partner of Daniel Agger that put a hit out on him. Lois understands that this revelation of this multiverse that's out there will profoundly upend the world's understanding of reality itself. And as Sister Clarice posits, truth isn't the same as fact. Where fact speaks to the head, what is true speaks to the heart. We kind of talked about that last episode. What people want to believe in their heart is what they'll believe. That's so right. Okay. So this is 4 issues where we wrap up things with what was an assassination attempt. Can we get the assassin? Oh, let's do some witchcraft. Oh, crap, there's alternate realities. Let's help everybody grapple with the alternate realities while also putting to bed all the reporter stuff I've been doing in the previous 8 issues. Yeah. You said you did the last 2 issues within 15 minutes before you got onto the podcast with me. And yeah, there's a lot that is, hey, this is a DC Universe book. You better make sure to mention Crisis. Make sure you put that in. There was an alternate reality.
I saw the word multiverse and was skip. Just don't care.
It does not. It isn't a reporter story. It's really strange.
Yeah, in a book that's supposed to be about like Lois Lane doing some hard-nosed reporting and fighting the good fight and being like yellow journalism and all that. Did we really need the multiverse angle? If that absolutely felt like an editorial note, I could not have been any less interested.
My notes on this were: it feels abrupt, it feels unexpected,
the non sequitur.
Yeah, we transition from a gritty investigative noir to this revelation about some kind of crazy science fiction thing that's happening with the multiverse, which it must have been the superheroes that knew that this thing was that the multiverse was out there or whatever. But
so in 2019, we had Endgame, which dealt with the multiverse, time travel and all of that. And we're getting it. And what we're getting next is the multiverse saga. And I have to think there was somebody at DC editorial going, hey, the multiverse is really popular right now, or it's about to be. We need to throw that in the story. And Greg Rucka's, I hate my life.
Should have stopped at 9 issues.
Yeah.
I do think that that's possibly a thing where they were listening. Okay, you got 12 issues. How many issues you got? Well, I got 8 for sure. Okay, well, how about we 4 issues, maybe add a little element of this supernatural thing. We've got witchcraft going on.
Why not how about the superhero orgy in there? Throw that in there too.
No, that's the boys.
Mm-hmm.
I put in here that the shift definitely let me down as far as this book goes. I think that that's the case. You could probably make an argument that you're setting something up for later. That's kind of the idea I got. Like they were trying to set something up that will maybe happen with the people. So many people are going to realize that there's an alternate reality out there. And Alicia Sanchez, who was the kiss of death, now realizes she was in love with Renee. Oh, there's so many more possibilities for other characters to do whatever, blah, blah, blah. I just,
meh.
Yeah, I mean, I liked their elements.
Mm-hmm.
Elements of this whole book I enjoyed, but that's one of them that kind of stuck out to me. Final thoughts there, Mark Radulich. I mean, my goodness, there isn't really anything specific that I want to pick out of this. There's a conversation I think she has with Clark that I mentioned on the last episode where she is upset about the fact that the public won't believe in her and what the actual truth is. They're only going to believe what's in their heart. And it kind of ties in with that monologue at the end that Sister Clarice puts out there. But give us your final thoughts. Any other things that are outstanding or stand out to you?
I thought the arc was okay in the book. I think when they were keeping to the political stuff, I think that was good. The relationship between Lois and Superman's really good. The beats with her and her son are really enjoyable. I even liked what they did with Batman. With like, hey, need you to go look at this and get back to us with.
Give me an hour.
Yeah, they kept Batman they used Batman, I think, really well, and then they got rid of him just as easily. The other really funny thing was it was a nice little character beat, and then Batman was very happy that this was magic in nature, and that Superman did not help you at all.
Right.
Batman still did. Here's the thing: it didn't need to be 12 issues. They had this thing. They had this thing wrapped up in 8 issues for the most part. Those last 4 were a bit of a slog. I think a little ways back, I said to you, let's just read stuff that I have on my bookshelf that is interesting, and we'll either like it or we won't like it. I mean, this podcast is what it is. We're either going to like a book or we're not. And we're not doing things for synergy. We're not doing things to try to stay a part of the modern conversation about comic books. We're just 2 friends. We're doing a little book club here. And so did I like the book? Yeah, mostly. I 2/3 liked it. There's that 1/3 of it was stupid and goofy and uninteresting, but okay, so it's not perfect. But did I enjoy reading it and talking about it? Yeah, absolutely. Would I recommend it? Yeah, if you're okay with reading a Lois Lane book and semi-political and you like Greg Rucka stuff, yeah, why not? It's not the worst Greg Rucka book I've ever read.
I mean, her words there towards the end, I'll read them real quick.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sister Clarice. Lois puts it eloquently in her book. She reminds us that truth isn't the same as fact. We resist facts.
Yeah, we do.
But we embrace those things that we identify as true. We are drawn to it. We seek it. It is how we decide what matters, because where facts speak to the head, what is true speaks to the heart.
I said a little ways back, there's certain things I'm not going to talk about anymore on the air, or if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to try to be nicer about it. But I remember an argument with Melissa going something like, there's no such thing as absolute truth. And if I feel something is true, then it is true. And it was one of those statements that definitely made me want to put my head through a wall. The problem is she's not alone. A lot of people feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
What I feel is true, even if it's not factual, which makes it hard to live in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. When your life is determined by your emotional state and what you believe is determined by your emotional state, I think that's the dangerous thing.
Yeah.
It's going to alienate a lot of people who are looking at what actually happened. And granted, 2 people could look at the same event and disagree on the outcome, but it also takes a rational mind to sit down and talk about that to see if they can come to an agreement as to, okay, this is why it affects me.
Yeah.
Do I understand why it affects you? Okay, let me see if I can. And then try to move on from that. Try to learn from it and also grow from it as well. So, yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of what this story is about is Lois Lane wanting and having that initiative to get the truth out there.
Going off our Gordon of Gotham series, can we just talk about whether or not side characters really need their own books?
So Lois Lane gets her own book. Now, do side characters need their own books?
Here's my question. So I don't know if you follow the sales of comics. That's kind of a Bailey thing. But the first question is, when you get a side character in the Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman or Flash or Green Lantern series, they have a cast of characters that are associated with, they have confidants, they have partners, girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, etc. They have real jobs, so they have bosses, they have coworkers, maybe they have a snitch. They have people, a sidekick. Maybe those sidekicks go on to form their own team, who knows? But my point is, there's a cast of characters associated with each main character, and they're there to flesh out those characters and give those characters someone to play off of. My question is, are these characters interesting enough to have their own books? And more to the point, do these books even sell? Do these books sell? Do they make money?
Right. I mean, I don't follow the sales of comics. And as far as what we're getting into tonight with Lois Lane, this was 12 issues, dude. If they are going, I didn't look at the weekly or monthly drop schedule, but this is if you go 12 issues and it's monthly, that's a whole year's worth of books.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of what it is a writer who is like, I've got a great story. What character can I possibly use to tell this story that's in whatever publisher I'm at right now that I'm working at? This Lois Lane book could very well have been something that sat on its own.
I have the dates published right here.
Okay. Is it monthly or is it bi-weekly?
It was monthly. So Lois Lane #1 comes out July 3rd, 2019. 2 August 7th. 3 September 4th. So far we're pretty solid on monthly. This is that Watchmen series where it was like one book every fucking 6 months to a year. And took them 12 years to finish it. October 2nd, November 6th, December 4th, January 1st, February 5th, March 4th. Okay, they skipped May. They skipped April, rather.
Normally, when you see a sidekick get a book, and we say sidekick, I'm going to just use that as a general term here, as somebody who is a side character or whatever.
Right.
Unless they're extremely popular, such as Robin or such as Harley Quinn, something like that.
Can we say they're either a powered individual or in some hallway of the pantheon of heroes and or villains or anti-heroes? Because Harley Quinn, right? Harley Quinn doesn't have any superpowers. She has a giant hammer, but she was the Joker's sidekick. So she was a villain whose her powers were she was a gymnast and she had a giant hammer and she was a little nuts and she had big tits. Those are her powers, right? So I understood why she was also wildly popular. I understood why she got a book.
Yep. Well, and Greg Rucka's running around with a story in his head going, okay, who can I use to adapt this story? And I've got a pretty good, I would love to know if the idea came first with, okay, I got a great story for Lois Lane, or if it was a situation where he's like, I've got a great story. Who do I use? Oh, Lois Lane's perfect for this. And I'll kind of throw Superman in there. And Superman does play a role in this. And so I might have misspoke when I said that it is something that could have stood on its own because
he was a very natural part of this story. This isn't Garden of Gotham where Batman was shoehorned in or Swamp Thing because fuck Firestorm. Like these don't feel like editorial notes. She has a relationship with Superman, and part of and one of the subplots of this book is her being able to have her own agency, her being able to do her job. She has to be quintessentially Lois Lane without being Superman's wife, Superman's girlfriend, whatever the fuck she is. I mean, they've had a kid together. I assume they're married.
It's nobody. I think the way that this is set up is that nobody knows that Superman and her are married. It's Clark Kent and Lois Lane are married. That's why everybody's thinking she's having an affair with Superman because
that confused the shit out of me too when I read that one. But
there's a lot of continuity issues here that kind of make you go, oh, what the hell?
Going back to my central premise, I'd be curious to see how much the Gordon books sold. I'd be curious to see how much this sold. And do comic book fans have the patience, have the stomach for Superman's Girlfriend's book featuring a cast of other sub heroes? The question. Rucka seems to like writing political stuff. That was one of the reasons why I was interested in this, because I read Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman series. And that was very politically charged. And this one's got a fair amount of politics to it too. I mean, in the opening bit, she gets her press credentials revoked because she's harassing the press secretary.
Right.
But my point is, and really the whole thing that we're talking about is, it just makes me, I just think about, I was interested in this, but I'm not, I think, a typical comic book fan. I'm not looking necessarily, I'm looking for good stories. I read a lot of I can't remember what the publishing company is, but they did that book that we did where it was the guys doing a robbery job. Oh God, what was the name of it?
Oh shit. Are you talking about Kaiju Score?
Kaiju Score, yes.
Oh shit! I want to. Gosh, I can't remember the name of the publishing company.
When I go into the bookstore, I'm looking for. Back in the day with comic books, they were pulpy novels. And I mean, they weren't the way that we think about comic books now. As a very specific thing. Comic books in the great history of them, they weren't just superhero stories. They were mysteries. They were murders. They were horror. They were science fiction. They were pulp. They were just a variety of genre and stories with just pictures, and there was a magazine form. And we got, I think, because superheroes got popular, we got caught up in that's what comic books and superheroes became synonymous with each other. But that wasn't always the case. Right. So when I go into the bookstore, I'm of that 100-year-old mindset of I just want to read a good story. And I'm not really looking for superhero stuff anymore. In fact, I find a lot of it boring. So I bought Enemy of the State because I was interested in the story of the pulpy story of a nose to the street reporter getting the job done. And I was okay with this being not a superhero story. And I was okay with how they use Batman and Superman and to a lesser degree Wonder Woman in the story and what they do with the question and all of that. I mean, it gets a little superhero-y at the end, but
it does.
Yeah, and almost like that to me felt more of an editorial note than anything else. My point is that's what I'm looking for. But how many of me are out there enough to warrant the continued publishing of stories like this? And how many people are out there going, I just want to read about Superman. I don't give a shit about Lois Lane. Lois Lane exists in the Superman. I have to imagine there are people who think Jim Gordon, Lois Lane, whoever is associated with Hal Jordan, Iris West, or whatever the hell her name is from The Flash, their existence is to beef up these comic book character stories. They're not interesting enough on their own. I would imagine more people feel like that than not. But I mean, I'm willing to hear an argument to the contrary that begins with that this thing ran all 12 issues. If it wasn't selling books, they wouldn't have finished it.
Well, I think a lot of what sold this book, number one, is the name attached to it, Greg Rucka.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I are from the school of when we went into the comic store, we looked to see what was on the shelves and we looked at the cover. We weren't, at least I wasn't looking at who was writing the books back then. Right. Nowadays, it's a different story. It's 2019. People are aware of who these writers are. Greg Rucka's got a long resume under him. So if they're soliciting a book that says Greg Rucka is going to write a Lois Lane story, they are mostly pinning their name on Rucka and hoping that what he can write will deliver. And
so your contention is not so much do side characters need their own book so much as if Greg Rucka or Todd McFarlane or Ed Brubaker or Keith David Diamond Stud
got all Dallas Page.
If any one of these people has a book on the newsstand, that's what's selling the book. Is that your contention?
Yeah. Well, I don't think people are a normal passerby that is going by and doesn't know the name is not going to be like, oh, Rucka. You know, they obviously have got to know the name and order the book. So I think it's all about ordering ahead of time if the book is going to sell. I don't know if Lois Lane is sitting on a newsstand and people are picking that up. I think Lois Lane is being solicited in some type of in DC Comics, and then you go to your comic book dealer and you say, I would like you to put this on the pull list for me, please. And then it sells that way.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think the average ham and egger, the average comic book buyer, the average Superman fan, the average Pat Mullen gives a fuck about Lois Lane?
I don't.
Enough to support buying an entire series.
I mean, you'd have to be a super fan of Lois Lane to go, I want all 12 issues just because it's Lois Lane.
Right.
I think that as far as this series would go, it isn't like it's tying anything into anything. It's not some big, it's definitely something that I want a good, right. I want a good story that's being told in 12 issues, which I was kind of mentioning earlier. A lot of side characters, when they got a book, I was just sitting here thinking of Microchip, who was the side character for Punisher. He was the sidekick. He got a miniseries. It ain't no 12 issue series. And I will also say that this book is very deconstructed, is I guess the best word to say. It's a situation where I say deconstructed, but regardless, it's not, man, event is happening all 12 issues. It's a very
cinematic slow burn.
Yes.
Like, other than the goofy, witchy comic book stuff at the end, this was absolutely a hard-boiled, quasi-political drama about if you would just take the same script and just take Superman out of it and say instead that he's a big-time police detective, big fame, or like he's a police captain, and not a reporter. And he looks after his reporter wife. Oh, and there's this other in the neighboring shitty city. There's another police detective that they talk to. It's very, very serious and likes to kind of Vic Mackey kind of beats the shit out of guys. I think that you could tell this same story, and this would make a halfway decent movie. This would make a halfway decent. It would go straight to Netflix. Don't get me wrong. No one's going to the theater to watch this, but this would absolutely get views on Netflix or Amazon Prime as a story about this reporter who is in over her head. She's solid at what she does, but she's in over her head now, and she's trying to figure out this mystery. And oh, by the way, she's under the gun of an assassin. She's getting a little too close to the story.
Oh yeah.
There's grist for the mill here, and don't get me wrong about that. But I'm always of the mind of, is there a market for this?
Right.
And is Lois Lane in and of herself a popular enough character to warrant such a thing? I mean, again, I go back to my question is, do Superman fans care enough about Lois Lane to follow her in her own book?
Superman fans I think they might. Lois Lane's been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got an established name out there in comics. So I think this would definitely grab some Superman fans' attention too. You a super fan of Lois Lane? Absolutely. A fan of Superman?
Do such fans exist? Are there super fans of Lois Lane? It's just like,
I'm sure there are. It takes all kinds, brother.
I was listening back to an old source material that I have saved on my phone, and I was listening to the Princess Leia book that we did. Those were fun times. But we had a similar conversation then too. It was just acknowledging the fact that a lot of non-main Star Wars characters had their own books. The main ones had their own books, and then they were creating characters within those books that were then getting their own series. So Dr. Aphra was a character they created, I think, in the Darth Vader series. There's a part of me that, if I'm arguing with myself about this, that might be it's like, well, as much as they might sell, we can't do 15 different Batman books. We have to do something else.
Right.
So in order to just, as my old boss said, in order to just fill the shelves with crap, they publish different, see what's next. Maybe Lois Lane isn't a huge solicit. Maybe it's not breaking doing Spider-Man numbers, but yeah, enough people buy it to justify the ink spent on it.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to be said about the challenge of it too. Like, hey, I'm going to write a story about so-and-so. That guy? Wait, you're going to write a story about that guy?
Right.
I bet there's probably an infinite amount of people out there that have some kind of story that they just would love to tell about how C-3PO got a red arm. Or
God, now that you mention it, it's so funny. You brought it up then during the Princess Leia show too. And I remember my exact reaction. That was, who the fuck cares? But I'm realizing that I'm not my exact words, but I'm realizing that I'm actually in the minority, that there are more MCU bleeding edge people out there than there are Religion Broadcasting Network fans and people rather. And what that is, Jeff's people and Jeff himself really got caught up in the minutia stuff. Like Chris Bailey, the MCU bleeding edge guys, the Ronnie Adams of the world, they really got caught up in the minutia of the lore of fictional characters. I think I might have said it to you the other night. If it wasn't you, it was maybe Robert. There was a conversation at my dinner table between Chris and my son Jonas about Deadpool, and I finally banged my silverware on the table and was like, you know why he can do it? Because he's a fictional fucking character and they wrote him that way. That's why. Now pass the butter. I was so mad. Because this is what people are into. For whatever reason, it is easier to sort of detach from reality and hyper focus in on the minute details of fictional characters than it is examine your own life.
Right.
And while I'm not that way, I'm clearly outnumbered 100-1.
Yeah. There's definitely something to be said about if there is a world that you love, then somebody is itching to explode it if there's enough people that love it, and they will explode it to where you look at every little detail. Okay, we're going to dive into that little section now. Now we're going to tell a story about Lois Lane, and be ready because
in defense of that position, I said how long I spent weeks on Wikipedia pages reading about Lord of the Rings characters.
I'm sure you did. I mean, dude, I've got my own stuff that I love and that I absolutely will dig into and want to learn more about, and wish there was some. I listened to all 3 series of Back to the Future Minute, which took remember
as soon as you started that sentence, I knew that's where you're going with this. I know you so well.
The films minute by minute and explored it. I know there's one out there for Lord of the Rings. You ought to find that. I bet you'd love it.
If I don't throw myself into oncoming traffic, for sure.
You would love it. You would absolutely love it.
When they throw you into Lord of the Rings, the Hobbits have been around for a while. Bilbo's been around. Bilbo, confirmed bachelor, has been around for a while. But he has a whole history as to why he's rich and a confirmed bachelor. Why he has all this money that he can just kind of be a man about town, which he was. When Gandalf finds Bilbo, I don't know if that. When Gandalf finds Bilbo, he is just living it up. He has his family's fortune. He has this nice flatware. The doilies. He doesn't do shit. Look at the character. Look at the hobbits of Hobbiton. They're farming. They're attending gardens. Everyone's got shit to do, and he's just jerking off, smoking a pipe. He don't give a fuck. When Gandalf finds him, he was just, look, you fat fuck. Maybe go out and have some adventure. Have a life. Stop resting on your family's fortune. And so he does. And so I was actually looking into that. There was a period where I was digging into Bilbo's family tree, and then and how he got to have the fortune that he does. I was also, I think, because I was a little confused by who the different sects of dwarven families. There were the dwarves of Moria. That look at me like I sound like such a nerd. I just want to throw myself down a flight of fucking stairs right now.
Please continue.
There were the dwarves of Erebor, I believe it were, and I was looking at, and then there's the dwarves that fucking show up at the Battle of the Five Armies. And so, who are these dwarves? Where are their kingdoms? Why are they in the state of disarray that they're in by the time we get to the War of the Rings? From the Hobbit to the War of the Rings, what happened to all of these different things? And I sat and fucking read about it for like days.
Yeah.
Trying to figure this all out and map it out in my brain so I became an expert in it and be able to talk at a dinner table.
If they made a comic book about what you read, would you pick that comic book up?
Yes. And
yes, he would.
And I'm ashamed to say that out loud. All right, I'm gonna go.
That's
Thanks.
your Lois Lane fans right there. Okay.
Okay. All right. Touche, my friend. Touche.
That's great. By the way, you mentioned that there was a month gap. They missed a month. What month was that again? Do you remember off the top of your head?
April
of 2020. This started in 2019. It had to have been April.
Yeah, it's April 2020 is missing. It would have been.
I wonder what the hell happened then.
I don't know, but again, at least it wasn't Watchmen or whatever that.
COVID fucked up the distribution of comic books.
You're not wrong. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Well, that's what that. You're right. That was 2020.
Yeah. This was in the middle of that series, and I remember, dude, fucking publishing and shipping of comics was on fucking fire. They had no idea how the hell they were going to continue. And as a matter of fact, the repercussions of what was going on with distributors, Diamond and all this other shit, it changed things big time. DC Comics was one of the mainstays that kind of it had to find its own way to ship things. It was crazy. But anyway, yeah, COVID fucked things up.
Sure, you couldn't go near people for a while. How the fuck were you supposed to ship stuff?
So fucking. It wasn't. Oh no, it wasn't. It probably
like
isn't
blocks of comics in front of places like running away with DoorDash.
It's probably not in your graphic novel, but I saw it in one of the issues. They had to fucking stay 6 feet apart. It had Flash and Plastic Man. Plastic Man had his hand out, and he was trying to stay 6 feet apart from the Flash. And it was,
that's hilarious. No, it's not in my graphic novel. I would have mentioned it to you.
It's crazy. This was 12 issues, a big ass maxi series of Lois Lane. Mark Radulich, tell people all about what is going on with the W2M network and the Radulich and Broadcasting Network.
I am at Mark Radulich on TikTok, Mark Kind, MARKKIND 76 on Instagram. We are W2M Network. All the Radulich and Broadcasting Network stuff it's on the W2M Network, Twitch and YouTube. We have a landing page. It's W2MNetwork.com, W2Mnet.com. But if you're just looking at strictly audio, for those of you who still do that sort of thing, we are on Spotify and Apple Music and all your other podcatchers on Radulich and Broadcasting Network.
All right. Well, with that being said, you guys, you'll hear my plugs at the end. We are getting out of here. That's Mark Radulich. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thank you for joining us. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.
Sorry. Okay.
Oh, look, I hit the record button. See, I hit it.
Suck my dick. So March was May.
March was May, and May was March.
Shut up. Iran. Those were fun times.
He's like, hey, I've got an idea of what I want to do with you guys. I was like, okay, sure. What do you want to do? He's like, Old Man Logan. I'm like, too fucking late.
Several years. By 8 years too late.
So yeah, we were running out of shit.
Yeah. Hey, have you guys covered the Infinity Gauntlet? Oh my God.
3 times, as a matter of fact. Yeah, as I was writing.
Whose mom hasn't walked in on us in the shower?
I just told you about all that.
And you bend over to pick up the soap that you dropped, and there's your mom sticking you with the broom. She's like, I asked you, sweep the fucking, just mine. All right.
Just yours. Just yours.
You and me and Robert, there's no fucking way we're getting done in less than 2 hours. There's just no fucking way. I got a 2-hour recording session with my man, my main squeeze, my number one partner, the bratty submissive. So I hear you when your wife takes control of the bedroom. You're a little submissive. It's a different show.
No.
John Jacob Jingerheimer. He has a lot of names. And that ends with fat women getting milked it is the only thing keeping that chat from Mad Max times and fat chicks getting milked. Okay, it's the only thing.
Please change the chat name. Is there a Mad Max titty milk theme?